Gentlemen, you caught me out. But I hope all is forgiven and we can rule this planet together, and no one need lose their retirement for gross incompetence and corruption.
Please listen to what Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary of the United States, has to say about national sovereignty. Have a listen.
The gold looks to me kind of like a classical speculative blow-off, but what I will tell you, we had at the State Department, there was a rare earth ministerial, countries all around the world. This is what U.S. leadership looks like. The U.S. is leading in solving this rare earth problem. Countries are not sovereign. You are not sovereign if one country can control your supply chains, and we are making our supply chains resilient. Countries are not sovereign. You are not sovereign if one country can control your supply chain.
More and more, the facts about Israeli City of London GCHQ control of US critical infrastructure become more and more vivid in the general world press, but it's still a little under wraps. It's certainly still hidden under the tsunami of the release of the Epstein files, but they are both intimately linked. The greatest control mechanism of all, direct control of US and world power grids, banks, ATMs, oil and gas pipelines, and deeply embedded industrial controller chips cannot compete with cannibalism of children, sulfuric acid barrels to dispose of bodies, and underage sex. And maybe that is the role of these releases more than truth, justice, and openness. We'll have to let time tell on that one. But if the past is any indicator, the next performative theatre posing as news will be prepared for the Ari Emanuel World Wrestling Federation audience. This is science to them. Tens of billions have been sunk into their fake alt media networks. But let's be clear. Dead kids, sulfuric acid baths, cannibalism, it's all certainly possible. These people are freaks. And Israelis lead the way in teaching the Mexican cartels how to dispose of bodies in sulfuric acid. But really, the first clue of what the intent of the Epstein file release is all about is the fact that it's all over the internet. And that is always a tell. Regardless, both issues are inextricably linked. Epstein networks and Israeli City of London control of high technology. How do you think this tiny little state became a cyber technology juggernaut and deeply penetrated the most high-tech, the most national security-focused critical infrastructure aspects of the US economy? How do you think they managed that? Well, the Epstein rings is one way. And it would be nice for the clickbaiters, online media, to actually talk about that. The control of critical infrastructure is the ultimate control, and the City of London got it via its proxy, Israel, Russia, and China, via blackmail rings such as Epstein. But as Kay Griggs warned us 30 years ago, the Pentagon and intelligence community is the key, and that is what we are not talking about. Remember what Kay said about secondary weapons sales. You saw that with Epstein involving himself in that very industry. Again, Kay Griggs, over 30 years ago, 1997.
For doing criminal activities, selling weapons, going through Tel Aviv, the bank in Rome, selling the weapons illegally. The Israeli agents are the middlemen. And all the money's going to Israel. It really is the truth. Mm-hmm. You know, there's no more, they're not Americans, they're not Christians, they're German existentialists. Now, what are they doing running our nation? It's kind of, they have more affinity for the state of Israel right now than they do our nation. They don't care about American citizens. The Israelis always are in there, but they get away, don't they?
The Pentagon is the cash cow that feeds the whore of Babylon, and we are yet to see a massive public outcry for the long-awaited Pentagon audit that never comes. Because if it came, you would realize where $5 trillion of taxpayer money has disappeared to, and you would demand accountability and maybe blood. The actual legalizing of the most massive espionage case in history and loss of national sovereignty officially is taking place right now under Pax Silica and a Chabad devotee, Jacob Hellberg. Jacob Hellberg leads the implementation of Pax Silica, which grants the Israeli state, and this is the key, it grants the Israeli state a full-time artificial intelligence overlay of industrial controller chips and programmable logic chips that monitor and control all, and I mean all, United States and partner countries' critical infrastructure And I mean all of it. No sane country would do this. Now you know what Epstein is truly about in amongst the clickbait leads. Jacob Hellberg's husband is best friend of Peter Thiel, Kevin Rabois. Sam Altman officiated at their wedding in 2018. Jacob Hellberg is a planted Israeli City of London Rothschild intelligence asset, originally from France. So Evelyn or David de Rothschild, take your pick. It's one big network. While FBI counterintelligence throws office parties when one Chinese national is caught stealing documents from his US-based military-industrial contractor employer, the State of Israel and its largely ethno-Russian high-technology Unit 8200 and Telpiot program graduates run the data out the door via a fiber optic pipeline, and if anyone tries to stop them, they threaten the tactical nuke of switching off the power, literally. I want you to think back to Jonathan Pollard. It's actually hilarious when you look at the details of the Jonathan Pollard case, how he would walk out of the Office of Naval Intelligence with gigantic suitcases and boxes full of documents, and the security guards would hold the door open for him. Well, now we've got the digital equivalent in Telpiot program, Unit 8200, and the complete penetration of the United States, down to its very core. And this is not new. This has been a long 70-plus year program post-World War II, and well before that even. Some would say for the last 250 years since 1776. It's very hard for the average person to believe this could be possible. But this is what 70 years of foreign intelligence penetration looks like. Multi-generational, illegals in the old Soviet parlance, KRM or tourist, the Israelis call them, for short-term operations. Mitzraban or settler for a long-term sleeper. Most of the time, it's hard to tell an Israeli and a Russian apart, hence the incredible headline out of the Israeli press calling Israel's, quote, pretend Russian Jews worthy of execution. And if you want the truth, only the Israeli press is talking about it, nobody else. This is not new. From the Silver Master spy ring that completely penetrated the Roosevelt War Cabinet, the White House under Harry Dexter White, who went on to run the IMF and World Bank and facilitate the rise of Red China and Mao, all were originally from the old Russian Empire. Al Jahiz outed by Nixon, and St. Joseph McCarthy, the man who truly understood the depths of the penetration, as did CIA counterintelligence James Angleton, who had been fully briefed on the Venona decrypts that showed clearly just how penetrated every United States government department truly was. This is what fueled Angleton's paranoia, not unfounded, and we see its final results today in Pax Silica. This is the final post-World War II implementation. The Crown Corporate, along with Jewish power banking houses, the Hofjuden, or court Jews of Europe, bringing down the errant British colony, bringing it to heel, bringing it under the Crown Corporate Commons. It is now appearing in public policy documents such as those explaining Pax Silica, the union of 7 different countries to share technology to dominate the emerging AI takeover of the planet, for good or ill. And it could be really, really good. And just the opposite, it could be the worst thing that has ever been done. I would not be placing it in the hands of a tiny ethno-racist religious state which has sworn to take over the planet. I'm sorry. We're going to need something a little harder from the US Defense Department. All of these countries, which includes Australia, the UK, Japan, and ironically, only the Netherlands and Europe, will be treated as local suppliers to each other. Perhaps Europe isn't that foolish. And when we think about it, as you remember, London central banker Mark Carney of Canada and Keir Starmer, the wet rag Prime Minister of the UK, going to China at the same time, the Epstein files were released. That was an attempt at leverage because, as Mark Carney said, if we want a seat at the table, we better move fast. Otherwise, we'll be on the menu. And that's what Pax Silica is. And it's being led by the Israeli state. Would you put your critical infrastructure in their hands? Well, too late, because I hate to break it to you, especially in the United States, it's already been well and truly in their hands. Again, we go back to that same single company, Rad Group or Radcom, and its founders, the brothers Zohar and Yehud Zissapel. They completely dominate the US critical infrastructure projects in everything. And that's just one Israeli company. One. They run all of it. Amazon, Microsoft, Intel Corporation, they're everywhere. Qualcomm, 5G. It's all Israeli. But I bet you thought it was American. This has been going on since the 1970s. So removing, especially in the United States, powerful limits on foreign penetration and influence is an even worse disaster than what's already occurred. What they're trying to do is legalize and normalize the greatest espionage case in history. I repeat, Pax Silica is an attempt at normalizing and legalizing the greatest espionage case in history. You can see the layout of what's being done under the National Defense Authorization Act for 2026. That's the NDAA. While the Department of War continually uses language in this document that indicates a great deal of caution when dealing with Israel, the fact is, why they're being dealt with at all. The country with a long history of espionage against the United States, the country intimately involved in the 2001 terror attacks on the United States, is leading the way. What? The United States can't design and implement a programmable logic chip? It can't design and implement an industrial controller chip? I'll tell you what the problem is. The Whore of Babylon, Israel, has negotiated a place at the table, or else, because all its stuff is already in the system, and it's clear that United States intelligence community and the elites can't get it out. So they've done a deal. And I'd like to ask the US taxpayer, are you happy with that? Did Whitney Webb tell you about that? Some would say the only dealing with Israel should be a literal land invasion, complete disarming and dissolving of the Israeli-Russian Defense Force, mass expulsion of the largely Russian settler movement back to Russia, and a complete sweeping of its high technology sector for foreign spies, especially Russian GRU-type sleepers that have infested the country for 70 years since its very inception. Please refer the Matrokin files. This very plan, the invasion and occupation of Israel by 2 Marine divisions, was wargamed on September the 10th, 2001. The same day Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld called for an audit of the Pentagon with its accountant comptroller Rabbi Dov Zakheim. We know what happened the next day. Perhaps the US base going into Gaza is part of that plan. If it is not aggressive enough. I guess trust the plan is too strong. Perhaps, quote, these things are handled quietly, end quote, is the motto they are using. Do you want to risk it? With Oxford Union, Rothschild-backed Chabad Lubavitch front and center in the White House, the court Jews of D.C. hanging out with Jacob Hellberg? I'm sorry, am I missing something in this analysis? The audacity is astounding, and the silence from the alt media heroes beggars belief until you understand they all work for someone. And I mean all of them, with any audience. For many people, this is just too hard to comprehend. Where's our $50 billion a year intelligence community? Yeah, that's a good question. But simply look at the consistency of what they don't talk about online, and you will have answered the question for yourself. Ask them, who did 9/11, who is Chris Berlin, and what is the Oda Junon plan? And what is the Kissinger multipolar world order and Primakov doctrine? Ask them. Then watch them twist themselves in knots or refuse to answer. There, you have your answer. None of them are real. 9/11 was a pivotal point for multiple reasons, but again, you will hear constantly in any, and I mean any briefing, any video on YouTube from FBI counterintelligence and CIA counterintelligence. Post 9/11, they were all pulled from counterintelligence operations and put onto counterterrorism, and the rat and the snake moved in. The Patriot Act under the Bush administration with their chief advisor, Kissinger, made the people of the United States the enemy, setting up the control mechanisms and making Israel rich in its counterterrorism specialties when in fact they run the terrorists. They are the terrorists. Pax Silica and the central role of the Israeli state in the control, implementation and monitoring of the world's critical infrastructure is an abomination. The fact a literal invasion of Israel has not taken place emphasizes the point. The United States has a sharp stake sitting directly over its critical infrastructure heart. The Whore of Babylon placed it there, and she is negotiating her place as central to the world takeover by the United States. She must be removed entirely from the beast system with extreme malice. And just to remind you, it's Jews who warned about this, and the Israeli press for the last 15 years has been screaming about this. That's where I get most of my information from. But right now, the Whore of Babylon makes herself indispensable because US elites must explain how their $50 billion per year intelligence budget of the last 40 years missed all this. Ask Jeffrey Epstein. He might have some answers. In the following March 2018 video interview with Diane, the cat diva from Tennessee, we go over what has placed the Israeli state in the position it occupies today, attempting to or succeeding in making herself indispensable in the coming artificial intelligence world order, making herself a fully functioning regional power, Greater Israel, which Steve Bannon has sworn will never happen. We sure hope so, Steve. Please tell Susie Wiles and the Heritage Foundation.
right? I've always had Israel's back. I adamantly oppose Greater Israel Project, and that's exactly why we're in this situation today. And nobody on the Israel side can defend it. The Greater Israel Project, this imperial Israel, is what's got us here to have a two-state solution, and that is this Gaza redevelopment with Qatar writing the check.
I take it we all understand the stakes are high. The issue's complex and clouded in fog of political intrigue and cover-up. The Epstein files are an example of how we got here, the tip of the iceberg in the blackmail of the last 70 years, allowing the complete takeover of all, and I mean all, the controls that facilitate the means of production, the means of transportation, and the means of transaction. The greatest espionage case in history that will never, ever be equaled. This is Battlestar Galactica level backdooring. Go watch that fantastic series, The Start, where their entire defense establishment was dismantled by foreign entities who got into their battle management systems, and they literally kill switched all of Earth's defenses. It's right there from 2008. But that incredible espionage and backdooring is now fast being covered over with a legislative cloak of normality and inevitability, if you let it. Here is where it all started.
This is about SAS Campbell Barracks, Leon Wind, Variant. Timothy, you told me that Variant does your local and national, your local police intercept from Israeli intelligence front.
I'm going to pop you in the car.
Yeah, I know you are too. F you, Tim. Okay.
I'll tell you.
What is our common bond truly? Freedom. Freedom. Without freedom, you can't be a Christian no matter what denomination you belong to. You can't be a Buddhist. You can't own a donut shop. You can't drive from here to Oregon. You can't be an American because that's what it's all about, and that's the only thing that it's all about. Nothing else. Nothing else. It's about freedom. Only freedom.